wait for Professor Prabhu to join and then we can start. Yeah, Usha and Prabhu sir has joined. Yeah.
Hello,
So,
sorry.
no problem, sir. You're waiting. No problem. We'll just begin. So, good morning to everyone. I, Yash, on behalf of the FOSSEE team, welcome you all to this inaugural ceremony of the Python Hackathon. So, let me just give you a brief about FOSSEE. So, the FOSSEE, which stands for Free, Libre, and Open Source Software for Education, it promotes flaws tools to improve the quality of education in our country. We aim to reduce dependency on proprietary software in educational institutions. The FOSSEE project is supported by the National Mission on Education, Information and Communication Technology, Ministry, Government of India. So let me begin the event by welcoming Professor Prabhu Ramachandran. So Professor Prabhu is a faculty member at the Department of Aerospace Engineering, IIT Bombay, and he has been actively involved with the FOSS and Python communities for the past 2 decades. He's an active member of the SciPy community and he develops many Python-based open source packages. He is the creator of the Mayavi Python package for 3D visualization. He's a PI of the FOSSEE project. He has been a nominated fellow of the Python Software Foundation since 2010. He was awarded the Kenneth Gonsalves Award the Python Software Society of India and PSF in 2014. So let me begin. Prabhu sir, over to you, sir.
Oh, thank you for the very kind, generous introduction. So firstly, warm welcome to all of you. Warm welcome to all of you who are participating in this Python hackathon. So this is perhaps one way that we are trying to encourage people to start using Python. Or those of you who are already using Python, for you to learn more about Python. And one interesting area where you can use Python is in the creation of games. So this is, I'm sure all of you must play some game or the other on the computer, right? Even people who don't do computer programming, a lot of them, even on a phone, you would write games, right? And it turns out that writing games is not an easy task. So in fact, if you want to write a professional quality game, you really need to be an exceptionally good programmer and a designer as well. So the interesting thing about games is it is not just a matter of only computer science, only algorithms, only programming. there is some, so depending on the complexity of the game, it has to also have a nice story. It must have good design elements. Um, and of course, must have good algorithms. And it should somehow involve the participant. So in some ways, it's a very, very creative task in the sense that you have to really think at multiple levels to write a good game. Um, Now I know some people will come to this as, okay, there are these prizes, or they're nice, attractive prizes, or the fame of making a game and winning a hackathon. So that's certainly one motivation. But I hope a lot of you are actually interested in the larger perspective, which is the fact that these skills are important. And in school and in normal curriculum, these are not necessarily very encouraged, right? You're all encouraged, even in college, to basically say, okay, here is a syllabus, you learn the syllabus, you write an exam, and then you pass. So one thing that we try to do with this hackathon is to, open your eyes a bit, and also give you this larger perspective of when you're trying to create something. There is a very interesting world out there of being creative and yet being very strongly technical. So that's the nice thing that we have with the computer game. Now, of course, there are many of you, or maybe none of them are here, who may not be interested in this, which is fine. But at least for those who are here, who are interested in participating, it would be nice if you could think about it in that sense, that this is an opportunity to create where you get credit, hopefully some recognition and credit. So I'm really hoping that a lot of you take this up as a interesting exercise / challenge that you can use in order to learn a lot. You will obviously need to learn a fair bit about Python. And the better programmer you are, that's going to reflect in the better design that you're going to make. It also will, it's useful for you to exercise your creativity. So it's just like anything else, like programming or painting, right? Music, all of these creative pursuits require a lot of practice. And any skill clearly requires practice. So the more you've done this before, if you've done other programs before, all of that helps. But hopefully this will also give you a good experience to learn that you can have fun while learning a lot of technical material. So that's really the background of our, this game-based approach. Because normally we have always come to it, at least the Python team from FOSSEE has been approaching this as, okay, there are curricular tasks, there's science, there's engineering, and here are tools that you can use to make that better. But we were inspired by another sister project, which has been doing this, game-based teaching. So we thought this would be an interesting way to get more people involved. So the hope is that you learn these two packages. We're looking at Pygame and PyMonk. Both of these are very popular. But again, remember, this is not like a full 3D immersive game. These are all more simple games. But it's important that you understand that even the more sophisticated games have the same kind of structure. The programming maybe for the 3D components is quite different. And there are many libraries for that as well. But once you get the hang of this, how you build a game, how you think about creating a game, what kind of graphic assets, the sound related stuff, how you have the gameplay, all of these are like cross-cutting. It's not like what you learn here is not going to be useful elsewhere. So that's the hope, and hopefully you have a lot of fun and enjoy this process of being creative, and maybe you'll be able to share it with others if you have a successful game that you create. So that's really what we're looking to do with this Python hackathon. Yeah, so that's all I really have to say. So I don't want to bore you with a long lecture or anything of this kind. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer the questions. Or if you want me to say something else about something you have a question about, if I know the answer, I will try to answer that. But thank you again for participating, and I really hope that you have fun and enjoy this hackathon. So Yash, any And anything else you want? Is there something
So,
specific?
guys, if you have any questions, Prabhu sir is probably the best person to clear your doubts. So take this opportunity because it's
Maybe
difficult
not the
to.
best person, but okay. I'm available. I can answer the questions that I do
No,
know.
so please, I mean, if you have any queries, else our team members will definitely interact with you and explain you the rules and all.
Yeah. So maybe if you
So
have questions that are related directly to Pygame and PyMonk, and this thing is not working, that thing is not installed, all of those things, I'm sure the FOSSEE staff will be helping you with that. But if you have more general questions about Python,
yeah, so if you have any such questions, please go ahead and ask Professor Prabhu because
yeah, same way organizational questions. What is the prize money for
yeah,
this? I could
definitely
not
please go
sign
and
up
ask.
here. I couldn't do that. All of that, the FOSSEE folks will help you. If you have something else to ask, I'm happy to answer.
Sir, where we have to submit our projects?
I'm sorry.
Sir, where we have to submit our projects?
Yeah. So these details, yes. So maybe Yash, you can answer
Yeah,
these
yeah. So
questions.
Mangalam, we'll help you out with these queries. So probably let me now welcome my team member Ankit to brief you about the rules and regulations and the flow of this hackathon. So Ankit, maybe you can take over.
Yeah, I'll be around. So if
Yeah.
case you want to switch back, that's fine. I'll just
Yeah.
shut off my video for you.
Yes, sir.
Hello everyone, I'm Ankit. I'm from the Python team, and most probably if you folks have been on the Slack channel and have been part of the Slack channel, I've been the person that you've been interacting with most of the time. I also have colleagues like Yash and Aditya and Akash who are also part of the Python team and who are also members who you will be interacting with. So before I go ahead, let me just walk you through what we are trying to do here. So in continuation to what Professor Prabhu said, the idea behind this hackathon was that we didn't want to go ahead with the regular kind of submission that we usually try. For example, a lot of hackathons rely on web applications or say mobile applications, or say there are themed hackathons which rely on a lot of the popular topics these days like machine learning and stuff. But instead, we wanted to take a slightly different route where we thought that we could approach this from some sort of a theme that is more global or something that people would be more interested in, even though they don't come from a programming background. So this is game development as a part of a hackathon has been happening for quite some time now, so this is not new. Just to give you an idea, there's something called there are events called game jams that happen all around the world. They happen offline. They also happen online. So, for example, there's a very popular game jam called the Ludum Dare. I'll drop the link here in the chat, and basically, or I can share my screen as well. If that's fine. 1 second. Cool. Folks can let me know if they can see my screen, and once they
Yes,
can.
Ankit. It
Yeah,
is
we
visible.
can see it.
Cool. So the Ludum Dare is one of the most popular game jams. There are obviously a lot more. If you've been on a website called itch.io, which is a game hosting website, they also have their own game jams that happen on a regular basis. But Ludum Dare is one of the popular ones uh, uh, in terms of the game jam space. So just to give you an idea of what a game jam is, it basically is a limited period, event that happens for a specific period of time. You have something called a theme that you follow, and the theme changes for every edition of the game jam. And you have a certain set of obviously a certain restrictions, a certain set of rules that you have to follow. And you are basically supposed to build a game in the limited period of time that you have and host it up on their either host it on their platform or submit it as a submission. And they have you have judges who sort of go through the games and then sort of on a very objective or subjective basis judge which is the best game that is possible. The submissions are put up, and then you sort of have some amount of bragging rights to say that you participated in this game jam and you sort of placed first, placed second, placed on certain levels. So like you can see, there's a theme here that they've started with, and they want you to follow that theme to be able to have certain restriction on what you can build as a game. It also makes it very interesting because once you have a theme and once you have people building around that theme, you can see how people approach the same set of words or the same set of themes, but in a very different fashion. So, for example, the results that you can see here are basically results for this particular edition of the Ludum Dare game. And these games, the list of games that you can see here are submissions to that specific set of themes or particular theme, right? So people have built different kinds of games, and you can go through those games if you want to. I wouldn't go into all of that detail, but you can see how they've approached that particular theme in a very different fashion, in a very different, on multiple levels, right? Even from the screenshots, you can see how different the themes are, how different the artwork is, how different the gameplay could be. For example, there seems to be a pseudo isometric game that's built here, which seems to be some sort of simulator, so on and so forth. So that is the kind of theme, that is the kind of structure that we were going for, a game jam kind of a place. But we globally call it a hackathon for all our events in FOSSEE. So we stuck with the hackathon word, but essentially what we are trying to build is a gaming hackathon or a game jam kind of a place. I think this answers a few questions that were posted about what kind of games you can put up. So the kind of game that you want to put up is up to you. The only restriction here is that you do not use any complex libraries. You do not use any complex 3D 3D rendering engines. Stick to 2D. There is a lot that is possible even in the 2D space. You can do a 3D kind of a layout. You can do isometric games, which are sort of 2D, but you get the 3D feel, so on and so forth. And you stick to obviously the set libraries, which is Pygame and PyMonk. Somebody's also asked about, can we only choose one theme? Yes. For convenience of judging for us, we request you to choose one of the themes and follow that particular theme. Obviously, you can select one theme and introduce elements, but you'll have to tell us which theme you followed, and we'll basically be judging you on that basis. That is one. To give you an idea of the dates that you're following, I'll come down to specific rules, and you can ask me questions on specific rules if you want to. But to give you an idea of the dates that we are going to follow, we will be, we've already announced on the Slack channel that you can start. So this was done on Monday, where you could start off with your game development, which includes everything from the artwork. If you want to include sounds and music, you can do that as well. Everything from the code to artwork to the basic planning of the game, etc. That is started on Monday. We will be giving you time till the 8th of June, which will be when you will, that will be the time that you'll get to implement your game and submit it. We'll give you a few extra days, like a couple of days, maybe 2 to 3 days, where you can maybe submit along with your game the documentation that you need to submit, the walkthrough, etc. So that puts it up, that pushes the whole submission to 12th of June. You do not need to do this separately. You just bifurcated things where you just because we would like you to submit documentation as well. So the final date where you can submit everything is 12th of June, and that is when you can submit all of your things put together in a folder, zip it up into a zip file, and then submit it on a form that we'll be circulating. The form where you need to submit your game files will come later, and we'll announce it on the Slack channel, and you can submit your file, you can upload your file there. That is one. Secondly, we also have we also had the idea that you will submit an idea that is the basic framework of your game, what you plan to do, etc. For that, we'll also be circulating a form by end of day today, and you will receive that link in the Slack channel, and you can submit a very basic idea of what you want to do with your game, where you want to go, what you want to do, what plan you have in mind, etc. That form will be provided to you by end of day. That form is just for the idea submission and not for the game file submission. So there'll be no file uploads there. You can only submit your idea over there with your email address to allow us to associate things with what you're trying to do. This is just to ensure that you don't deviate too much, or there are no plagiarism issues where you sort of have something in mind earlier, but have turned up with a very different thing at the end of the day. So idea submissions will happen by, you will get a form by the end of the day. File submissions for your game will happen at the very end, and we will most probably circulate it later on. That is around June, that is next month, when the last week of your submission comes up, right? Apart from that, that is a major dates announcement as such. With
Ankit, just a doubt. This this form which you are supposed to circulate today, will we be doing through emails or Slack channel? Just
so
to be specific on that.
The easiest approach is Slack channel, because we can't keep shooting out mails every time. So a good notification to everyone here and everyone watching on the YouTube live would be, please join our Slack channel. I'll drop the link in the YouTube live as well. 1 second. So I'll drop the invite link here. Just give me a minute to do that. Yes, and I've also posted it in the YouTube live. So in case anyone's not here in the room and they're watching us from YouTube live, you can please use that link. It's a Slack invite link. The Slack forum is basically used for frequent communications, because we can't keep shooting emails to each other. So it's a more interactive way to sort of get to know you guys, folks, and also to answer any of your queries. So I'll be announcing the form submission, the forms, everything on the Slack channel. The dates that we've announced here will also go up on the website, so we'll update that as well soon. Going back to the rules, very basic, is please use only Python, please use only Pygame, and there's an optional package called PyMonk, which is a physics engine. So for example, usually any game would need some amount of physics to be involved. So for example, if you have a person jumping around, you can't keep implementing things where you're implementing the fact that the person will jump in a parabolic fashion and come back to Earth. PyMonk is a physics engine that gives you these features inbuilt, where your sprites or your characters or your parts of your game follow general physics rules that you will define using PyMonk. It's a convenient library to implement all these things. So if you have balls shooting around and hitting each other, etc., PyMonk is like a physics engine that handles all these interactions very well. Any other submissions that are built with any other software would likely be disqualified. The reason for this, and we've had questions about this on Slack, asking us if we can use this library or that. Generally, a lot of the stuff that you usually need, I don't think anybody's building as complex a game as where they'll need a very sophisticated library from outside. A lot of things are already provided within Pygame, so Pygame is a very mature library in that sense. The reason we have kept up this rule, even though it does cause a little bit of inconvenience, is that the boon and the bane of Python is that Python has a very large ecosystem. It has a lot of libraries that are available online open source and free. That makes it very convenient to build stuff, but in a setup like a game jam, the focus is on how well you are programming, right? This is an opportunity for you to learn and understand and build something out of it, and not use pre-built packages to solve the problem for you, which sort of takes out half the fun, right? So we would not like you to use pre-built libraries to get done with the game. We'd want you to enjoy the process of building it and understanding what you're doing along the way, which is why this rule has been put in place. It makes it a little more convenient for us to evaluate the game from a very fair point of view, where a person has already been through the effort of building everything himself or herself, compared to a person who's used pre-built libraries. Based on what we've seen, I don't think there'll be a large need for third-party libraries. PyMonk and Pygame usually give you all that you need, right? And half of the fun is also to figure out a way based out of those limitations that you already have. How you will design your story or your game around it, for example.
So there are some questions on the chat.
Okay, let me come back to the chat and sorry. Yes. So Adnan Abdullah asks, can you use both Pygame and PyMonk? Yes, you can use both Pygame and PyMonk together. They are meant to go together usually if you're building a game. If you've already submitted your game ID and the registration form, that does not make it invalid. I'll just submit a form again for folks. I'll submit a new form. I'll create a new form and resend it on the Slack channel. You can use the same idea that you already submitted, and that's fine, no problem. It doesn't invalidate your earlier submission that you've already sent in. Your device does not support a Slack app. You do not need to download any app. Slack is accessible in a web platform. So if you use Chrome, you
I think there is some issue with Ankit's connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like he has some connectivity issues. So I'm trying to answer some questions here on the chat.
He'll rejoin till then, yeah.
Yeah, so you can use standard Python or standard Python libraries in standard library, not the standard library of Python. You can certainly use. Obviously, that is part of basic Python, and you can use Pygame and PyMonk, but nothing else. It's not like you can use Ogre or any of the other more fancy game frameworks. And if you want, I guess they can use NumPy if you really want something. Yes, but yes, go on, Ankit. Sorry. Yeah.
No problem. I'm unfortunately lost questions, so in case there are questions that I missed, yes, could you just repaste them in the chat and it'll be fine. Can we use sprites from Google? That Google lets you use it for free. So we don't mind you using sprites that are available for you to use in something like a game which you're submitting. So this is a very non-commercial kind of a competition, obviously. So you can obviously, you're not using something for commercial purposes, but we will rely on you to do all the due diligence to ensure that the sprites and everything that you use are free to use or licensed well enough to be used in something like an adaptation of a game or whatever.
Or even to redistribute, right?
Correct. So you unfortunately or fortunately have to do a slight bit of research to be able to find such sprites or find such elements that you can use.
Same thing applies to music as well. So you
Exactly.
can't.
So any resources, any sort of resources that you're using, material, backgrounds, artwork, sounds, music, etc. You will sort of have to do the prior research to ensure that it is usable. CC licensing is something that you can Google on the basis of in Google as well and on a lot of platforms. So Creative Commons gives you gives a lot of liberally licensed stuff that you can use. That goes for sounds and music as well. We will paste some links for convenience that you can try to search on, some sort of aggregators that you can search on for music and music, sounds, and as well as artwork. Again, though these are aggregators, so they'll have a lot of submissions, a lot of artwork, a lot of music. You will have to make sure that you're filtering them on the right licensing.
So when you're doing this, just a note: don't try to do this at the end, right before your submissions. When you collect these assets, you should be diligent enough to make sure and make a note. So if you're going to use it in your game, immediately take a note. This is also part of this hackathon exercise, is to show you that if you're systematic, you can get a lot of things. A lot of these issues can be solved if you do them from the beginning rather than at the last minute. So do that.
Okay.
So there are some more questions which I think you have missed. One
yes.
is someone has asked, can you? Yeah, okay. Someone wants you to send the Slack link again.
Correct.
Then when will we submit the idea? So I guess the answer is by today evening we'll share the form.
Yes.
And that will be, and I guess by tomorrow or so they have to submit the idea, right?
Yes.
Then, yeah, I think the rest you have.
I have. So Romil has asked, how are we supposed to submit our source code? So you're not supposed to upload it on GitHub. You can upload it on GitHub for your own convenience. We are not asking you to submit a GitHub link. What we need you to do is you need to maintain a Git history by using the Git on your own machine, in your own folder, on your own machine. Once you're done, just zip up your folder along with the Git history and send it along to us in a form submission that we will circulate later on. So you're supposed to upload a folder or directory or a set of files in a zip folder, right? And the zip folder should contain your Git history. This is again to make sure that you're developing regularly on a regular basis and not just copy pasting stuff from elsewhere. I've read a few queries on Slack which mention that do we need to regularly commit? Do we need to do this on a regular basis? It helps us to understand that you've been doing this on a regular basis on your own and committing things at regular intervals. So that is why we have this rule in place. The Slack channel does not seem to be opening. I'm not sure why. Can you just tell us what the problem is, or you can send us a mail with a screenshot of what the problem is on pythonsupport@fossee.in, and we can help you along if you want us to.
I tried it. It is working fine.
Okay, so maybe Ayan Chakraborty, you're either stuck on the introductory page where it sort of tries to get you to install the app, but you can use it in a browser link. You can try the link that Ms. Usha has just posted and see if it works for you again. Maybe the earlier links were sort of buggy. What else? So going from
someone is asking.
I guess
we can change this. They can change the subject. So today, when you submit the form, they can change.
That's fine.
The storyline, whatever it is today, because today will be the final idea submission.
Yes.
how much weightage advantage is given to a game with sound and music and one without them. So ultimately, what you choose to do is up to you. You want to put nothing and say this is a game which is just empty, and you want to run the risk of doing that, that's fine. But see, remember, it's about how the story hangs together, how the game hangs together. So whether it needs music, doesn't need music, whether it needs whatever you plan to do, whether it needs animation or not, is up to you. But remember that there are many submissions here. So other people will do that, and you may be judged. So we're not judging specifically on it has this checkpoint. It's not like an exam. It's a creative pursuit. So what you choose to do is you need to be convinced about that idea, and you need to be better. There's going to be a panel which is going to sit and judge the submissions ultimately.
Okay.
And that is going to be somewhat subjective. So this is not like an exam which mathematics questions which have exact answers. They don't. And that's the thing with it's like music, or there's definitely some element of so obviously the judges will not be looking at it as I like this game, so I'm going to vote for it. So they're going to be looking at how much effort it takes, how sophisticated is the game, how is the narration, how does it flow, how are the elements, how is the interaction for a user, what quality are the graphics, what quality is the music and sound if you have that, right? And that's really what people will, and they look at the whole big thing. They're not going to look at, okay, you have so many more lines of code than this person. That is not how it's going to go. You may have a game that's actually fewer lines of code than someone else. But if that game is better architected, written, or styled better, it looks better, it feels better as a game, it plays better, it has a nicer story, it's more engaging as a game, all of that counts. And that is unfortunately something that no one can actually list out, right? So think of it as, you imagine you're trying to sell this game to somebody, and that's
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the long answer for that. What should the format be for docs?
Yes. So formats are standard in any Git project. You'd most probably use Markdown or RST for Python documentation, or you can even use text files if you just have. Our requirement is just a basic README to give us the instructions to how to run the game. We do not mind text files as well. We do not expect any complex documentation for the whole project as such. But it can either be text files, Markdown, or RST, anything that works for you. Right?
So someone is asking that he has finished.
You've already finished this project.
The project
haven't maintained a Git history.
That's a bit surprising, right?
Yes. So if you could finish your game in 3 days, kudos to you. But unfortunately, that is a requirement, and a lack of a Git history does not give us the idea of how you've been through the process of building it, which is why we want you to have that in place.
Oh, and by the way, let it be very clear that you can't take an existing game and then just submit it and pawn it off as your own, because we will be checking that it's not like you repurposed an existing game or you changed a few assets in an existing game that satisfies. That is not acceptable. Those submissions will be disqualified. I don't mean it to this person who's asked this question, but in general,
Correct. So plagiarism on in any sense of that matter is not allowed. You will be disqualified, and we are not bound to give you reasons for it. Someone could argue that we are inspired from somewhere else and that sort of a thing, but again, this again becomes very subjective. So we will be judging based on sort of certain parameters just to make sure that that inspiration is not just a mask on you filling out some game for your own. Which is why, in general, we recommend that a spin on an older game, although would be nice to look at or play, we recommend you not doing it, because again it becomes a little difficult to be able to judge something, because you built on top of an older game like, for example, Ping Pong or Mario, we wouldn't be able to give it justice in terms of judgment as well, because again, it will be reliant on an older game that you've already seen or played before, right? File formats, gate history. Is our game, does your game, so your game can have any multiple themes that you wish it to have. Our only requirement is that you follow a major theme, as in the theme that you select out of the three that we've given you. You need to tell us in the documentation. You need to be able to express it as much as is possible in your game, and make sure that it follows that theme. You can obviously have chickens in space, and we wouldn't care if you want that to be your side theme along with the main theme of space. But it should follow one of the three main themes given in the guideline. Ayan, again, I can't help you with Slack issues. You can send me a screenshot on pythonsupport@fossee.in, and we can try to see what the problem is. But you can try different browsers, your mobile phone, for example, etc., and see if you can access it. So a lot of folks are saying that they've followed through but have not maintained Git history. I'd recommend that you sort of maybe go through and try to break up your project and maintain Git history now, because the guidelines were very clear on the website. We needed you to follow through with maintain Git history.
Yeah, so if you, for example, done the same thing as a part of something else and you're trying to submit it here, that is not fair to people participating in this project. So I think we're going to have to enforce this rule of wanting to see your Git history.
Yes. Sayan Gupta has asked, we have to make a unique game. Yes. Again, see, this is very subjective. I or anyone here may not be able to tell how unique a game is. Obviously, plagiarism is not encouraged, again, just to let you know. But the more unique your game is, it makes it easier for me or anyone on the panel to judge it from a new set of eyes. That is, in a completely fresh perspective. If I were to build a game that is similar in theme to Mario, for example, someone who's judging me would sort of obviously have a something in mind, or a perspective in mind, or a bias in mind, that this seems to be based off of Mario, or he has a bias in mind. Maybe he doesn't like Mario, for example, and according to him, that wouldn't make for a good game. Whereas a completely a 2D platformer built completely from scratch would give him better involvement or better fun to play with. So a unique game is recommended. An inspiration or a spin, or a spin-off of a completely new approach to an older game. For example, obviously examples that I give here can't be submissions of games. So anything that I give as an example is now off of your charts in terms of a game kind of a thing. A very simple example, and I'm giving this because, again, this is very subjective. So, for example, I played a version of Pong that someone had built, not for a competition, just an open game submission, where you control the ball and not the paddles, right? So this was a very unique spin on a very classic ping pong game, a very simple ping pong game, but you control the ball instead of the paddles, and you try to avoid the paddles and go into the goal, right? So that was a very unique way of looking at the game and trying to build a spin-off of that ping pong game. But again, these are very rare. They are very interesting spin-offs, and you need a lot of thought put into it. So if you want to take that risk, we'll appreciate for the risk, but you'll have to reach a certain mark if you want to take a spin-off of an older version of an existing game. So be careful of what you're submitting. Original games are encouraged because, in that sense, they come from your mind and they're your approach. So it gives us more insight into what you're thinking instead of being built off of another game.
Hi, Ankit, there was one question about music and animation. So just wanted to clarify that even the audio which will be used in the game would be open source. That is what is preferred, right?
Not
So
open source. It should be licensed as such that they can
licensed,
use it in
you can
redistributable
use,
material
yeah.
in their own.
Even the animation which is used, because we
Any
will
sort of
judge on,
resources. So
yeah,
if you
we'll
build
judge
it
on
on your
those
own,
aspects.
yeah, if they built it on their own, it's fine. If you design things on your own, it's fine. If you're using GIFs, if you're using animations, if you're using, I'm not sure if you should be using videos in such a lightweight game, but if you're using any sort of resources, they should be licensed as such.
So someone's asking, can we build already present games using our own approach? Ankit has been talking about exactly that, but your own approach. So this is where it becomes subjective, right? So you can't take a classic game, just re-implement it, and then hope that you will win the competition. That's because someone else has thought about this, the gameplay, the structure, the assets, everything is already thought out. You're just doing an implementation of that. So you may not, you may not win unless your implementation is so spectacularly good, right? So it really has to shine somewhere. So I would suggest not doing that because it's going to be hard to beat the original game.
Correct. And just an identical re-implementation of an older game is not going to cut it, obviously, because that will technically count as plagiarism, basically. So
you can build a game for small children. Someone's asking. Yes, you can. That's perfect.
So the target group, there's no specific target group. You can build it for small children. Please understand that building for small children, I mean, again, this becomes very subjective. So, a Tower of Hanoi game or sort the balls into baskets game could be something that is a game for a preschooler. But please understand this in the context of the game jam. So the game jam is where you're going to compete with people who are building other games in other genres and other target groups. A hint here is that your target judgment panel is not a preschooler, right? So there has to be some amount of appeal that you're gonna approach with, right?
Yeah. So to maybe I'll just add to what you're saying. See, the point is, if the preschoolers were judging, what Ankit is saying is, preschoolers were judging it, they like a simpler game than a more complex game because they can't even play the more complex game. So that will not give you any brownie points because the preschoolers are not going to be judging your game. So what we are looking for is how creative you are. How the game plays together. It can't be I just take 5 blocks and then say show me all the green colored blocks, show me all the blue colored blocks. It's a great game for kids. Unfortunately, it showcases no skills in terms of complexity of either the programming or the AI or whatever it is that you have for the programming. Doesn't showcase skills for the assets, or gameplay. So that's what we are looking at. So it's harder, I agree, but yeah, that is the
right.
Okay.
So I have a few more questions, and I'll answer Soparno's questions first. What is Git? Git is basically just a tool to track your software changes. If you don't know, we have 15 to 18 days. You have enough time to sort of just pick up on what it requires. We will post resources if you want me to, and we'll post it in Slack channel if you want to sort of pick up on it. It should not take you a lot more time because you're not going to cross collaborate, so it's fine. We'll put up resources. You can try to learn it, and this is exactly what we're trying to do this for. This should be a learning experience. Ojas has asked, can we make multiplayer local games? Yes, you can. That's fine. We'd appreciate if you add in a single player element to it, but you want to make a purely multiplayerly local game, that's fine as well. Multiplayer online games are not recommended because you'll have to host it somewhere, which again makes it public. So Saurav is asking, what are the benefits of submitting the game here over doing it on our own and publishing it on different platforms? A sort of snarky counter question to that is, what is the benefit of you doing it on your own and publishing it on different platforms? I'd say not much. You get a little bit of brand value, and I agree. Here, the idea is that you sort of learn along the way. You understand. So a lot of us, and I included, to a certain extent, took game development for granted, and we try to because there are a lot of games in the market these days, we try to push off saying that okay, this game doesn't seem to be as good as this one, etc. But even the simplest of ones have a lot of thought and process that go into them. The idea was here was to build a community to help you learn Python along the way, and to help you understand how games work and how you build them, and have an interesting task to do that along the way, right? To give you a more specific answer, once we're done with the hackathon, irrespective of whether you won or not or whatever, you can take your game, go away with it, and submit it on different platforms. To answer a few other questions, I think so, which were asked on Slack, etc. During this duration of the hackathon, please do not publish your game on a public platform. For example, an open GitHub repository, any of the game hosting websites like itch.io, etc. Please don't post it on it. That is just a request. You can do that after the hackathon is done. We do not hold any rights to your games. You can take your game and post it on any platform that you want to. Right? Pygame has its own gallery of games as well. If you want to post it there, you can do that as well after the hackathon is done.
Yeah, there's also the thing of prize money. If you win the prize, you get something. So that is
Yes, definitely.
That's an advantage if you think of it as an advantage.
Right.
Is it mandatory to use Git? Is the last question, and this is so. Supposing someone's from a school background and they don't know anything about Git.
Correct. So in that case, so again, we'll put up resources on the Slack channel. Git is basically a little more complex if you're collaborating with other people, which you're not doing in this case. So it should be pretty simple. There are GUIs and tools that help you along. We'll post resources to Git and how to use it, and how to use a GUI maybe to make it a little more simpler for you, so that you can track your progress using Git. That is one. I think so. I remember somebody asking before I dropped out. I think so. Somebody asked if we can do multiple submissions. So we recommend you not doing multiple submissions. We will not judge your multiple submissions. We'll only judge one submission. So if you end up doing something like that, we'll judge the first one that we find on our list of submissions. So we would not want you to lose out on something. So just submit once using the form that we'll provide.
Yeah, it's hard enough to create one good game. So doing 2 games is like expecting a lot out of you. So
it also says something about you trying to optimize to sort of try to
there's a last question here about that Mangalam is asking. You can maybe
so again, you were using the SBL library. So I'm not sure the internals. I don't think Pygame uses that. I'm not sure. Again,
the question is the idea. So maybe I'll answer that.
Okay.
So is the game something that is already? If it's something that you just created on your own computer, you've not shared it anywhere, you have not published it anywhere, you have not used it for another competition. It's just an idea that you had and you're going to implement it now. That's perfectly fine. Right? It's not like your all ideas have to come only now. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is it should not be that you've already made this game, you're just doing a translation of this game, you submitted it somewhere else. Then it's not entirely fair. That's all. So, but there is obviously history. Supposing you have written 20 games before, and you're going to use ideas from there, put in a new way in something else. That is fine. Absolutely, yes. You can use tutorials and
correct. So you can use tutorials. You can use
documentation, that
etc. Obviously, if you're going to say that it's a tutorial of how to build a Mario game in Pygame, and you're going to lift up all the code off of that tutorial, then obviously again that wouldn't be something that's fair. So do not use large blobs of code from the whole tutorial. You can use small snippets, and that's fine. You can even credit some of the tutorials in your README, and we should be fine with that. So that's okay. Yeah. any more questions, any more confusions, so please join the Slack channel. So you can post any questions you have there as well, and I'd be happy to answer. If there is something out of the guidelines or the website that is not clear, we'd be happy to answer it for you now as well. What else? Just let me go through. Correct. So please include, so again, just announcing, just so that everyone is aware, please include a README file in text format or markdown format. Please ensure that you have a complete list of steps, Python commands, computer commands that you need to run the game, right? So we are going to be blankly following the command that you give us, right? There's only so much that we can do in terms of trying to figure out how to run your game. And there are going to be a lot of submissions. So please make our lives easy and the panel's lives easy. Please enter in detailed list of steps or commands that any of the panel would need to run your game. Please, it's encouraged that you include images and GIFs or maybe walkthroughs of your game inside the documentation. So if you're using Markdown, there are ways to add GIFs and images within the documentation itself. It would be nice to have, because then it gives us a flavor of what you built and get an idea of what you've done. Obviously, add licensing and attributions to any resources that you've used, to your own code, etc. Try to add a help section or a how to play section. Sometimes there could be maybe a game where there's certain set of rules, and your player is supposed to follow them. So imagine that your panel is a dumb player who's going to also run the game on their computer. So you need to give them all the instructions that they need, and also a set of instructions on how to play the game from a player's perspective, right? So that is what is expected. To give you a short idea, the panelists most probably are going to be running the game on a Linux platform. So that should not affect, because Pygame is based on Python, and again, that should not affect a lot of things. But just to let you know, it's very probable that the panelists will be running the game on a Linux platform. I'll let that information sit with you. So Romil has asked, how is the idea of taking a famous category of game and just implement the given the core of the given theme as a feature? So again, Romil, this is very subjective. Platformer or a racing game or a tower defense game is genre, right? You can obviously, your game can be a part of a genre, and we don't mind. That is the idea. You follow a certain genre so that the person has some amount of fun. So you can build a tower defense game, right? But the story involved, the elements involved can't be lifted off another game. So look at it like movies. A movie can be a part of a particular genre, right? But you can't copy the same movie and then be happy with it, right? So
at least we don't want you to copy the movie. If it's an idea, saying, okay, there's somebody, this thing is the game or whatever, that's okay. I mean, obviously, many people would have come up with the same idea, but it has to be there has to be something unique about it.
Correct. So,
like Mario, you can't just take Mario, exactly the same thing. The thing, he keeps jumping, collecting points and going. That's too much of the same thing. Right? So maybe.
And I know that this sounds very narrow when you say that it's a 2D platformer game, but if you look at the kind of examples that people have put out, even in terms of 2D platformers, there's a lot of variety that you can give in a 2D platformer. There's a lot of game elements that you can add. There's a lot of gameplay elements that you can put in, a story that you can add, the objective that you're looking for, the kind of bonuses that you collect, etc., etc. There's a lot of elements that you can do to make it far more different from other games that are out there. So saying that it's a 2D platformer is a very narrow way of looking at a game, and just saying that it's a 2D platformer doesn't make it similar to other games. There are a lot of elements on a lot of areas that you can do to make it very different from from how things are. So
I think Ankit is having some network troubles. So Romil, the question is not, the sophistication of the game. Question is the story of the game, man. It can't be just, okay, go kick this door, do that. No, it's like there's a game, there has to be some story to it. That's what we mean. It's only 12 days. This is not a, commercial venture trying to publish a game. Right? So when we say story, we mean that the gameplay has a theme that, or a storyline that it's following. Yash, is that correct?
Yes, sir. In fact, so I guess the majority doubts would have been cleared. If
No, so
you
there's a question on saying 12th June is the final deadline.
yeah, 12 June. Okay. Yeah, 12
I
June
think
is the
8th
final.
they have to submit something, right? Yeah.
Yes. So 8th you'll have to Chetan, 8th you'll have to submit the thing, and along on 12th, by 12th you'll have entire documentation and everything. So we'll keep you posted about it on the Slack channel and all Slack channel, so you can just stay connected there with us, and we'll even send you some mails. So don't worry about that. Yeah.
So let me just take Romil's question. Romil,
Yes,
I
sir.
think you're misunderstanding. What I'm saying is, so everything has a story. A presentation has a story, but it's not a story in and of itself, right? So if you have a game, there's a theme. There is something in that. It can't be a random collection of things. And someone judging a game is going to look at that. Okay, how does it play? Is there something going on in this game? That's all we mean. Okay. What you choose to do is up to you. You can submit something that has no connection. It's all random, right? But you may not win anything for it. So all I'm saying is that story has to, the game has to, inspire someone to play it. Can't be, okay, I do some all fantastic programming, lots of nice, graphics and nice music, but there's nothing really to do. That doesn't give you any points. So it has to be a game. It means it has to be engaging for someone. And usually when you want to engage, there has to be some part of it, where there's some story element. And that story doesn't have to be like a full-fledged story. It can be a small piece.
yeah, so before I dropped out, that was exactly what I wanted to say. So I've actually played 2D games in my browser, which have kept me involved. And I was surprised to be so, because it was just a 2D game where there was some amount of 3D perspective where I was looking around and shooting at enemies, but it kept me involved because of for example, because of the music. The music was very interesting. It was sort of like a dungeon where I was moving around and shooting at enemies. Secondly, there were snippets of the story that came in between the levels, right? So that kept me glued because I wanted to understand what the next piece of the story was.
Yeah, so I don't know if, so that is dependent on time, ability for you to do this. So Salon, yes, you can do that, but whether it will be accepted, it will be accepted, but whether you're going to win anything for it, don't know. Right? It's like saying, okay, I have a competition. You can do something to get accepted, right? You didn't copy it from anywhere. You wrote an original implementation, but there's nothing new in it. There's, it's like, the thing is, why would someone want to play your game? Right. So ideally try to do something that's different. So yes, changing the physics is okay, but you need to think about it. You need to say, I can't tell you before I see the submission. I can't tell you. So you need to think about it and say, okay, there is this unique element about this which changes the nature of the game, which is fine. And I think Ankit cited an example. He took the Pong where you control not the paddles, but you control the ball. So it's a different take. That's an interesting take. That's fine. Right? But you can't just put arbitrary physics there. It has to fit in with it being a game. So again, a lot of you are thinking about this. Okay, I have to attain this goal X or 100 marks. And okay, you are trying to say, okay, what are the kind of parameters I can play with to get to those 100 marks? Unfortunately, in creative pursuits, that is very hard to do. We can't give you, it's not an exam.
Yes. To add on to that, please don't look at this as a way to win the hackathon. Try to enjoy the process of building stuff. We'll also keep the Slack channel open after the hackathon is done. So in case you folks are interested in interacting and sort of working on this as as a regular basis or something, we can even try to see if we can do that. One. Secondly, please try to interact a little more. The idea behind this is to to be able to interact with other people, be able to talk to them, enjoy the process. So interacting as a part of a community is a part of that, right? So you don't have to obviously give out your idea, but there are parts that you can talk about. You can talk about the genre of the game. You can talk about what elements you want to add in, what could be interesting. You can ask questions to each other. I mean, it doesn't have to just be us from FOSSEE answering your questions. You can ask public questions. You can answer other people's answers, etc. If you keep looking at everybody as a competitor, you're not going to get anywhere. This is true for life as much as it is true for this competition. So please try to enjoy, interact, and try to build your game along the way. So you're going to look at it as a way to win the hackathon. You'll keep looking for hacks or ways to attain that, like Professor Prabhu said. Instead, try to enjoy it along the way. So I guess this is just a short interaction session. I guess if that's it in terms of questions as such, you can always ask them on the Slack channel as well. I hope everybody could sign in. For those who couldn't, please send us a mail and we can try to figure it out. But Slack channels are usually very convenient to join. So please try to figure it out yourself and let us know. And I guess if that's okay, yes, we can sign off for now.
Yes,
in case
so
folks have any queries about the rules and stuff, you can still ask us.
Yeah, so there's one final question by Romil. So the idea is this. So supposing we get, say 1,000 submissions, it's not possible to give individual feedback for all 1,000, but definitely the finalists or the ones who've really cleared all the hurdles and have made really, really good submissions will get some feedback. Yeah. So, and the rest will certainly get something, saying, okay, this is this or that or whatever. Some sort of feedback will be there, but the extent will the amount of feedback will increase as you, get closer to the finals. Final list of selections. Okay, so
sure.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, so
wishing you all the best.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess majority of the doubts would have been cleared, guys. So I'll just now like to call Ms. Usha Viswanathan, who's the Senior Project Manager of FOSSEE, to give away a formal vote of thanks. Yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So I would like to thank Professor Prabhu for spending time with us and answering the queries and motivating the participants. And thank you everyone for attending this inaugural session. And I wish luck to all of you. Do interact with the team on the Slack channel and complete the task within the deadline. And there is around a lakh worth of prize money to be won. So do participate enthusiastically. And we also are sure that the participants will hugely benefit and you are actually contributing to the open source software community. And apart from that, I would like to thank our funding agency, the Ministry of Education, Government of India, and our PI, Professor Kannan Maudgalya, who is a driving force behind this FOSSEE project, which actually organizes this event. And thank you, everyone, and good luck, and be a game changer. Yeah, thanks.
And thanks to all the FOSSEE staff who've, put a lot of time in organizing this.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
all the best, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy gaming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck. Bye.